All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, you can definitely go ahead and put me in the category of the folks who believed that Myles Garrett was going to be leaving Northern Ohio on the first thing smoking. But at the end of the day, money talks and everything else walks. It was 2 months ago when the Cleveland Browns season ended with a 3-14 record that their star defensive end, Myles Garrett, let it be known that he wanted to go play for a contender. The Browns organization countered by saying basically, hey, we've got no intention of trading Garrett, to the point that they turned down offers from other NFL teams who were willing to trade for him. Now, prior to coming to an agreement today, the Browns did offer Garrett an extension a while back, as this offseason began. And he basically said no because he just let it be known that he wanted to go out there and win. And it looked like on the surface that he wanted to go to a contender. I mean, Garrett had me convinced, and I'm sure he had other folks convinced that he was done in Cleveland. I'm not afraid to admit it. I drank the Kool-Aid on this one, and I was wrong. Okay, as we've seen Myles Garrett do an about face, and he has now decided to remain with the Browns. Today, the Browns made Garrett the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, as both sides agreed on a 4-year extension that's going to average about $40 million per year. And he's also going to get more than $123 million in guaranteed money. Like I said before, money talks and everything else walks. As so much for the tough talk that came from Myles Garrett about wanting to leave Cleveland in order to go out there and play for a contender. So why did Garrett change his mind, you ask? Okay, I'm an outsider on this, but at the end of the day, the Browns threw a boatload of money at him. Okay, and it's one of those where, sure, Myles Garrett would have gotten paid any place that he went, but you know what? Maybe not to this extent. And the tears that he's probably going to have from not winning. You know what? He can wipe those tears with a lot of money now. Um, it's one of those for me. Okay, you see that Garrett's going to stay in Cleveland, and the question is, are the Browns any closer right now to being a contender than they were at the end of the season? Absolutely not. I mean, the offseason in the NFL is still very young. Free agency is really hasn't gotten going yet. We've seen some trades come down, this, that, and the third. Of course, the draft is next month. You name it. But at the end of the day, the Cleveland Browns are still a bad team, and you have to ask yourself, with every move that the Browns make, are they or will they be able to close the gap on everybody else in the AFC North? We saw Cincinnati barely miss making the postseason last year. They finished with a winning record. Of course, both Pittsburgh and Baltimore got to the postseason, and of course, Baltimore won the division and got to the divisional round. So I don't think that Cleveland, first and foremost, has closed the gap on any of those teams. And even with a full offseason ahead of us for the Browns, I'm not sure how much that the Browns can do in order to close that gap. I mean, they just had Deshaun Watson structure his deal, but still so many question marks at the quarterback position, so many questions at so many other positions on this roster for the Cleveland Browns. So for me, I really thought if you were the Browns, you really should have entertained or at least really listened to the trade conversations or the trade talk from other or the trade offers rather from other teams. Because the thing is, okay, you brought Myles Garrett back. He's more than likely going to finish his career with the Cleveland Browns. But it's one of those where if you're the Browns, are you a Myles Garrett away from contending? And the answer is no. And then since you're not a Myles Garrett away and a guy of his talent could bring back so much on the trade front, what could you get back for him as you're looking to build something? So these are questions I really think that the Browns should have had amongst themselves. I'm not sure that they did it. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't change the narrative for this team. He's got 102 career sacks. We're talking about Myles Garrett. Clearly, nobody has come even close to that number in Cleveland. We know that the sack didn't become an official stat in the NFL in 1982. And at the end of the day, all you're going to do right now, you can go ahead and put Myles Garrett in that category of great players that will more than likely spend the bulk of their career, if not all of it, with just one team, in this case, the Browns. And he's going to be playing for a bad franchise. We saw it most recently with Joe Thomas, who spent his entire career with Cleveland. And of course, now we can say Hall of Fame offensive tackle Joe Thomas. Myles Garrett is clearly a Pro Football Hall of Famer already in my book. Clearly, I don't have a vote, but nonetheless, he will be in Canton when his career is all said and done. It's just one of those where he talked big, and I'm not going to sit up here and knock him for it per se, because you do have the right to go out there and change your mind. But at the end of the day, he really did lead a lot of people to believe, hey, he wanted to get out of town. He wanted to go to a contender. And the fact that he changed his mind so quickly, makes you wonder if he really did want to win. And the reason why I say it is this: maybe if he had pushed his stance, at least as far as wanting to go to a contender further into the offseason, we're talking about going into training camp, something like that, maybe things would have changed. Okay, but clearly, you know what? At the end of the day, it was about the money for Myles Garrett. He caved and he folded faster than Superman on laundry day. That's the bottom line. But nonetheless, Myles Garrett has his green from the Browns. He's going to continue to rush the passer in Cleveland while wearing the brown and orange. But at the end of the day, the Browns, in my opinion, are no closer to being a contender than they were at the end of the season. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.